We are back with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about your agency and what a day in life is like for one of your employees?
Sure. I work for Immigration and Customs Enforcement and removal operations, and a day in the life of an ERO officer is quite interesting, actually. Today you may be conducting at-large enforcement operations, trying to track down a violent criminal non-citizen who violated immigration law, bring them into custody. You may be also monitoring the detained docket, where we oversee a detention population of around 33,000 people nationally. You could be monitoring cases that check in with the ERO field office in the local jurisdiction, which we have 25 field offices across the nation for check-ins and continuation of the immigration life cycle. You may be enrolling somebody on an alternative to detention program, which includes wrist-worn technology, GPS monitoring devices around the ankle, telephone applications where you can check in with ICE as you proceed through immigration proceedings. You may also be on a docket where you schedule removal from the United States, and then you could be traveling around the world to any place in the globe, in the continental United States or internationally, to take somebody back to their final destination after they've completed the immigration removal process.
That seems like a very dynamic job. It's so interesting to hear about it. What would you say really makes ICE a unique federal agency?
So I think what separates ICE and makes ICE very unique is that we have a public safety mission, no doubt. We definitely protect the public safety and the communities in the United States, everybody in the United States. Our job is to protect their safety. We also protect national security, of course. But we have a really nuanced humanitarian mission as well. And so our job is very complex, it's multi-layered. Immigration officers, deportation officers are asked to fully analyze a case, identify all of the aggravating and mitigating factors that might be present in a case, and determine what's appropriate. If that includes issuing a charging document to an individual or deferring action for another time, that is what our officers are asked to do, and it's quite complex and very nuanced in terms of federal government law enforcement requirements.
And I know ICE has several different components. Can you tell me about a few of those components and what type of candidates are best suited for them?
So ICE has multiple directorates. We have enforcement and removal operations, which is a deportation officer or a enforcement and removal assistant or mission support specialist. We also have attorneys that work for immigration and customs enforcement. For ERO, enforcement and removal operations, we're looking for motivated individuals that are really excited about getting out and doing a lot of work, being very flexible and fluid in what's asked of them to do every day. Homeland Security Investigations is our sister agency within ICE. They do complex investigations ranging from human trafficking to child exploitation and a whole number of things that the Homeland Security Investigations staff do. They also have a mission support complement as well. We have an entire directorate dedicated to Office of Professional Responsibility, where they investigate allegations of misconduct in whether it be in detention settings or in the workplace. We also have, like I mentioned, attorneys that work for ICE, and they litigate immigration cases in an administrative setting, or they represent ICE in front of the district court or even in the Supreme Court at times. So there's a lot to do with ICE. Depending on what you're interested in, we'll have a job for you.
And not only is there a lot to do, but there's a lot of places to do it. ICE has duty stations all over the world. What should employees expect in terms of mobility?
So ERO has 25 field offices nationally. An officer or an employee that works for ICE generally will get to stay where they choose. If they want to stay in one duty location, that's up to the individual, depending on which pathway their career takes. If the individual wants to go to another field office within ERO, there's a transfer process for that. So if your family composition or life changes, we can generally accommodate individuals within ERO pretty swiftly. HSI has close to, I think they have 30 SAC offices nationally, and they have a separate set of responsibilities for their transfer process and mobility. With respect to our international footprint, we have representation all around the world with attaché offices everywhere in the international footprint that you can imagine. With ERO, we have staff that are there specifically to work with government organizations abroad so that we can verify citizenship, get travel documents issued, and help repatriate citizens back to their home country when their due process has been exhausted and they're returned.
Thank you so much for this really great overview of U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.